From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon, Burnaby. I'm Richard Davis. Here's what's making news at 12 o'clock. Over 600 workers from the Greater Vancouver Regional District Employees Union may be going on strike. Members have voted in favor of strike action with 97.2% support. The union has been in talks with Metro Vancouver for over 18 months since the previous agreement expired. Starbucks has closed their only union shop in Vancouver. Our reporter Max Mashman with the story.
Starbucks has announced they are closing their only union store in Vancouver. Starbucks claims the reasons for the closure is the expiration of the lease and the cost of renovation. Portland Starbucks union organizer Amy Terrell says that Starbucks has closed union locations in the past for reasons they do not think are entirely genuine.
They were a union store that shut down, and the reasons gave were due to safety.
Amy went on to clarify.
They weren't any more of a dangerous store than our store is. We experienced the same amount of incidents.
The United Steelworkers, who represent Starbucks' unionized location in Vancouver, are yet to make a statement on the closure. Max Mashman, 1680 The Crow.
Premier David Eby says he is white-hot angry that a man was given day release from a forensic psychiatric hospital and has now been arrested in a triple stabbing. Eby says what happened has had a devastating impact on Vancouver's Chinatown.
I cannot fathom how someone who murdered his daughter, was released in 2009, went out and stabbed somebody else, would then be released again, unaccompanied, somehow able to go out and buy a knife, go to Chinatown and stab 3 people. How is that possible?
64-year-old Blair Evan Donnelly has been charged with 3 counts of aggravated assault in Sunday's attack at the Light Up Chinatown Festival. He was found not criminally responsible on account of a mental health disorder for fatally stabbing his teenage daughter in 2006. BC Housing just announced 58 new affordable homes for seniors. Our reporter Alicia Nolasco gives us more details about the funding given to this new project.
The new Senior School building is part of a $19 billion project invested by the BC government, operated by the Community Land Trust of British Columbia. The new home is a 6-story building with a mix of studios and 1-bedroom apartments for seniors with low or moderate income. The new accommodations, named the North Arm Housing Cooperative, were given a grant of $10 million and are located in Fraser Street and 19th Avenue, Vancouver. The building is now open and receiving new members. Alicia Nolasco, 1680, The Crow.
Now, Alicia joins us live. Alicia, can you tell me a little bit about where you are today?
Hello, Richard, of course. I'm outside the 411 Center Senior Society, which shares the building with the new Cobb Seniors North Arm with low or moderate income. The 411 Senior Center actually contributed to around 25% of the homes being made.
Now, is the Senior Society helping with the seniors' needs in the actual building itself?
No, not really. They just help to fund the building. This is a separate society. They are now just like neighbors. The floor at the 411 Society is a place for seniors for activities. And now the residents of the new building will have the access to come and participate in the activities that the center offers.
Thanks, Alicia. The Jericho Beach Pier will live to see another day on the ocean as Vancouver Parks Board voted last night to repair the pier in a like-for-like restoration. BC Premier David Eby announced a new hospital and cancer centre in Surrey this morning. The 168-bed hospital on 176th Street will also have a BC Cancer Centre with 54 chemotherapy treatment spaces. At the breaking ground ceremony, Eby said,
It will have the latest in healthcare technology. It will be a cancer center and a treatment center where more than 100,000 oncology appointments will take place, including 70,000 plus treatment visits every year, driving down wait times. We know we need to drive down wait times in cancer. We know that people with cancer can't afford to wait.
The announcement comes after several healthcare workers in Surrey signed an open letter sounding the alarm on the lack of doctors and overcrowding at Surrey Memorial Hospital earlier this year. September is known as Suicide Prevention Month, and among students, mental health is important. Our very own Riley Leung has more.
It's been almost 2 weeks since students have started going back to class. Approximately 77% of college students have experienced moderate mental issues. The question is, are students getting the help they need? Resources and help for students are being strained. While some have access to regular support, such as weekly therapy, many that need the support are on long wait lists. According to Canadian Institute for Health Information, the wait time for mental health counseling across Canada is on average 22 days. Psychiatrists say that they are experiencing a shortage on therapists. Riley Leung, 1680 The Crow.
Over to Coquitlam, where a man has filed a lawsuit following an incident in June 2022 when he says 2 RCMP officers allegedly entered his home unlawfully to serve him with a traffic violation ticket. Kirk Forbes says as he was walking out of the bathroom after taking a shower, well, that's when he came face to face with the dark figure in the hallway. He says he was about to tackle the person when he noticed the police uniform. Forbes says the officers told him they were serving him with a traffic ticket from 2021, but the father of 2 says he was never pulled over, and the lawsuit accuses the 2 Mounties of entering his home unlawfully. Liberal MPs are gathering in London, Ontario to plan their fall strategy as the party grapples with rising discontentment towards Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Polls show the Liberals have sunk into their lowest level of support since taking government in 2015, largely due to the benefit of the Conservatives. Liberal caucus chair Brenda Shanahan, who is an MP from Quebec, says a frank exchange is underway about the party's challenges and how to better communicate their platform.
We're doing the work and it just needs to get delivered in a way that's more effective and that where Canadians are feeling the impact, obviously. It's something that is a two-way street, and that's where the caucus members are so important because we hear it directly from people on the ground.
The meeting kicks off today with gatherings of small caucus groups, including women, Indigenous and rural MPs, which will be followed tomorrow by regional and national groups. Health Canada authorized an updated Moderna vaccine for COVID-19 for all Canadians over the age of 6 months. Chief Public Health Officer Dr. Theresa Tam says the number of COVID-19 cases in Canada is rising.
We know immunity does decrease with time. So part of the reasons that we think there's an increase in uptick right now is this reduced immunity over time, which is why there's a recommendation to get the updated vaccine if it's been 6 months since your last infection or vaccination.
Dr. Tam says it's safe and convenient for people to get their COVID-19 shot at the same time they get their flu vaccination this fall. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is in Rome now after a flight from New Delhi early this morning. The Prime Minister's plane, a CC-150, was originally built in the late 80s and was acquired by the Air Force in the early 90s. The fleet is currently set to be replaced by modified Airbus A330 airliners. Well, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is on his way back home. That's not the case for NASA astronaut Frank Rubio. Yesterday, Rubio broke the United States record for the longest space flight after having an extended stay at the International Space Station. He arrived at the station last September and surpassed the current record of 355 days yesterday. He was originally supposed to stay at the ISS for a routine 6 months, but his stay was doubled after the Soyuz capsule he traveled in with 2 Russian astronauts developed a coolant leak while parked in space. The trio will return to Earth September 27th. A Russian airliner was forced to land at a cornfield this morning after suffering from hydraulic failure. The plane, an Airbus A320, was flying from Sochi to Omsk. According to Russian authorities, no passengers or crew were injured in the landing. Russian airlines and aircraft parts have been under sanctions due to the war in Ukraine. However, the Russians have denied the lack of spare parts contributed to the crash. On to sports now, where the Toronto Blue Jays are in a must-win situation tonight. They lost last night's game to the Texas Rangers 10-4. They are set to play the Rangers today at 4 p.m. Former Dodgers pitcher Hyun-Jin Ryu takes the mound for the Jays. The Vancouver Canadians over at Nat Bailey are set to play their first round of the playoffs versus the Everett Aqua Sox. The Canadians won 77 out of 131 games played in the regular season. Now down to the U.S., where Aaron Rodgers, in a well-awaited debut, injured his left Achilles tendon on his fourth snap in his debut with the New York Jets last night. Coach Robert Saleh said the team believes the injury could be serious after the Jets' 22-16 overtime win over the Buffalo Bills. Bills head coach Sean McDermott says the Jets having to switch quarterbacks from Rodgers to Zach Wilson didn't help the Bills, as they made too many mistakes.
They're two different quarterbacks, just from experience alone, right? So, and that's when you're saying, hey, we're up 13-3, I think it was at halftime, and you're saying, take care of the football, be smart, and we weren't smart. And again, that's, you shoot yourself in the foot, it's hard to win games.
Now local hockey season is back in action tonight as the Surrey Eagles take on the Chilliwack Chiefs at the Chilliwack Coliseum. On to weather now. It's currently 15 degrees and cloudy outside our studio in Burnaby. The high today is 18 degrees. Now you can put away your rain jackets as the sun is set to return tomorrow with a high of 19. That's all we have for you for the 12 o'clock newscast. Thank you so much for listening to BCIT's student radio station, 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
This is 1680 The Crow, and you're listening to our feature presentation.
Following another season of wildfires in British Columbia, residents might be asking themselves, what does this mean for the people dealing with disasters on the front line, and how might we make it easier for residents going forward? Joining us to talk about the human impact of wildfires and how to help people in dangerous situations is UBC PhD candidate and environmental anthropologist Maya Dorio. Maya is currently doing research into the human experience of people affected by the Cameron Peak fire in Colorado. So to begin, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, about your work, and how you got involved in this field.
Sure. So I am a PhD candidate in anthropology at the University of British Columbia, and I got into the field of studying primarily wildfires, but also disasters and climate change through a deeply personal experience, which involved my family's historic home in Colorado, being burned in the state's largest wildfire in state history in terms of acreage in 2020. I had originally started out my doctoral program intending to conduct different research, and then got pulled into this, as many researchers do, based on either personal experience or a disaster unfolding at a research site.
All right. Thank you so much. And touching on that, I read that your primary research was following what happened in Colorado. What did that entail for your actual research?
Yeah, so I'm still conducting research. I'm currently completing my field work. I'm currently based in Colorado, living in the burn scar of the Cameron Peak fire, which occurred in 2020. And my research is really focused, broadly speaking, on how different people, primarily residents, scientists, and researchers, are making sense of this wildfire in the context of other wildfires, disasters, and climate change.
And just by speaking to the people there, is there anything you think that can be done to help people going through these natural disasters, specifically wildfires? What is being done, and what do you think could be improved?
Yeah, I think there is a lot that can be done. So I think that we really need to start conceptualizing hazards and disasters such as wildfires as both grounded and cascading. So wildfires, for example, are they're often accompanied by post-wildfire flooding and debris flows, particularly in this part of the world, including in British Columbia. Wildfires also produce smoke that's hazardous to human health. And then there are often a series of cascading impacts that people experience following the period of an active wildfire itself. Or if we want to use a scenario from British Columbia, the 2021 heat wave actually led to wildfires. So I think it behooves us to think more broadly about disaster, not as encompassing one particular kind of hazard, but as something that leads to a series of cascading consequences for the people who are experiencing them.
And if it's a bit out of your wheelhouse or you don't feel comfortable answering, that's completely fine. But how would you address those cascading impacts that you're talking about? Do you think there is any way to do it? And do you think enough is being done?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think there are a variety of ways that we can start to address cascading impacts, and one is just to be aware that hazards are accompanied by other hazards, essentially. And because of climate change, we are dealing with heightened levels of uncertainty around weather and disaster. and that requires us to be prepared for a wide range of circumstances. So we need to anticipate, the possibility of multiple scenarios. So one way that we should do that, I think, is by providing better support for our communities to help them be prepared for this wide range of circumstances. So, for example, when we think about wildfire smoke, people should have access to proper masks and filtration systems for their homes before their towns are inundated with smoke. We need to have cooling centers set up for heat waves, as well as clean air centers where people can escape wildfire smoke, for example. We need to attend to those groups of people in our communities who are most vulnerable to the impacts of extreme weather and climate-related disasters. These may include the elderly, the unhoused, people with disabilities, people who speak languages other than English or French, as in the case of Canada. So I think we really just need to start thinking ahead about not only about the uncertainty that we are currently facing and the uncertain future that we're heading into, but also how to prepare for that uncertainty in a wide range of possible scenarios.
Great. And last question, was there anything that surprised you talking to these people firsthand, anything they said or noted that you found interesting or that you think is worthy to share?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Thank you for that. I think something that I found really interesting is the complex relationships that people have with the landscapes in which they live. And so I think, staying on the topic of disaster and emergency response and planning, people make, complex and calculated decisions about how to assess risk, for example, to wildfires, and that's the disaster I'm most familiar with. And I think emergency planners and emergency responders, I think anthropological research like my own, which really highlights narratives and stories of lived experiences, can help the wider public as well as emergency planners to understand the complex reasons people choose to stay in their homes during evacuation notices, for example, the relationships that they have with the surrounding environment that may affect the kinds of decisions they make around wildfire risk reduction around their homes. Those are the elements that I find really rich and interesting based on talking to people here in this community.
All right. And is there anything that you'd like to add that maybe I haven't touched on or asked about?
I think I would just love to say that that in addition to thinking about disasters as having cascading consequences for people, I think it also helps if we understand disasters as encompassing multiple time periods. So speaking again about wildfires, there's a period in which wildfires are active, and that can actually be a very long period. But it doesn't mean that that the hazardous period is over for people. So thinking about how we can proactively protect communities before disaster strikes, but also realizing the very long time period in which people require support for recovery and may possibly also be exposed to other hazards like post-wildfire flooding and debris flows. I would love if we thought about time and the time periods in which disaster unfolds in much more complex and nuanced ways.
That was environmental anthropologist Maya Dario. This is Max Mashman, and you are listening to 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikki-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretanero.
And I'm Radhika Sikki-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
This is your 12:30 news update on 1680 The Crow. I'm Zach Clark. BC Premier David Eby says he is white-hot angry that the man who stabbed 3 people in Chinatown was given a day's release from a forensic psychiatric hospital.
I cannot fathom how someone who murdered his daughter, was released in 2009, went out and stabbed somebody else, would then be released again, unaccompanied, somehow able to go out and buy a knife, go to Chinatown and stab 3 people. How is that possible?
64-year-old Blair Evan Donnelly has been charged with 3 counts of aggravated assault after his attack at the Light Up Chinatown Festival. He was found not criminally responsible for stabbing his 16-year-old daughter to death in 2008 due to mental disorder. BC Housing just announced 58 new affordable homes for seniors. Our reporter, Alicia Nolasco, gives more details about the funding given to this new project.
The new senior school building is part of a $19 billion project invested by the BC government, operated by the Community Land Trust of British Columbia. The new home is a 6-story building with a mix of studios and 1-bedroom apartments for seniors with low or moderate income. The new accommodations, named the North Arm Housing Cooperative, were given a grant of $10 million and are located in Fraser Street and 19th Avenue, Vancouver. The building is now open and receiving new members. Alicia Nolasco, 1680, The Crow.
The province of BC has announced a second hospital in Surrey, but already the project is facing rising costs and delays, with the completion date having been pushed back 2 years. Last year, officials stated the project would cost roughly $1.7 billion, but the total cost has since risen to $2.8 billion. Construction, which was initially estimated to be completed in 2027, is expected to finish in 2029, with the facility opening in 2030. Starbucks has closed their only union shop in Vancouver. Reporter Max Mashman has the story.
Starbucks has announced they are closing their only union store in Vancouver. Starbucks claims the reasons for the closure is the expiration of the lease and the cost of renovation. Portland Starbucks union organizer Amy Terrell says that Starbucks has closed union locations in the past for reasons they do not think are entirely genuine.
They were a union store that shut down, and the reasons gave were due to safety.
Amy went on to clarify.
They weren't any more of a dangerous store than our store is. We experienced the same amount of incidents.
The United Steelworkers, who represent Starbucks' unionized location in Vancouver, are yet to make a statement on the closure. Max Mashman, 1680 The Crow.
Libya has been facing devastating flooding. Mediterranean storm Daniel washed away entire city blocks in many towns in eastern Libya, but the town of Derna faced the worst. The representative for Libya for the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies said that over 10,000 people are missing after the floods. The country's search and rescue efforts have said that upwards of 2,000 people have died in Derna alone. 5 former officers have been charged with federal civil rights violations in the beating death of Tyre Nichols. The 5 officers were formally indicted in U.S. District Court as they continue to fight the second-degree murder charges they face at a state level. They all face 4 counts at a federal level, including deprivation of rights through excessive force and failure to intervene, deliberate indifference, conspiracy to witness tampering, and obstruction of justice through witness tampering. U.S. federal lawyers and state attorneys have filed a huge antitrust lawsuit against Google. The suit claims that Google has been paying off more than $10 billion a year to maintain its status as the #1 search engine. Prosecutors opened their case by saying the future of the internet depends on it and asked whether Google's search engine will ever face real competition. It's 16 degrees and light showers here in Vancouver, with sunny skies set for the rest of the week. A high of 22 with a low of 10. That was your 12:30 news update on 1680 The Crow. I've been Zach Clark. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikki-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretanero.
And I'm Radhika Sikki-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.